Hey, Saber folks. So I know it's been a while. It's been at least 4 or 5 days, I think, since I uploaded anything new Saber related to my channel. There's a reason for that. So I've been actually busy having a lot of fun working on BladeStyle, some for commission and some just um, for for various other things. Um, so more on the commission stuff later, because there will hopefully, fingers crossed, will be some cool announcements if some of those other commission arrangements end up going through. There'll be some great news to announce on that front. 2 days ago, I think I posted in the Virus Sabers community. I was sort of feeling, well, not bored's the wrong word, but I felt like I wanted to sort of interact with folks in the group a little bit better with regard to the BladeStyle stuff that I do. A lot of the folks in that group know me for liking to create lots of BladeStyles, and so figured I'd have a little bit of fun. I've been on vacation from work for about 2 or 3 days, and sort of just diving headfirst into style codes. I've been doing nothing but style codes for the last 3 days and just having a blast. So anyway, what I did on the Virus site, the Virus Sabers community Facebook group, is I issued a sort of a friendly challenge. I said, anyone give me a sound font or a character theme that you'd like me to build a BladeStyle for. And I got some pretty cool answers back. Fortunately, not too many, so that it didn't, so that I actually had some time to go through and build. But I got about 4 or 5 requests back that were, honest to goodness, like really cool challenges. So first one I got back was from Sean Johnson, is a friend of mine, who asked me to put together a BladeStyle pair for the Orochi, I think that's how it's pronounced, the Orochi Soundfont that JuanSith made about a year ago. Now, I hadn't ever heard of this sound font before, but it's a really cool sound font. So got the sound font, sat down, did some thinking and tinkering, and put together one version of it, but it wasn't really the version that was sitting in my head. So as I was putting that first version onto the config, getting it on the Saber, I'm sort of running through the machinations in my head about what I wanted the actual real version to look like. And then I ended up going back and building that one later. So I've got 2 versions of the Orochi on this config that I'm going to demo for you tonight. The other request I got was for a lava BladeStyle. Now this guy, this came from a guy named Alan Owen, who is also a good Facebook friend of mine, from the Saber community. Very nice guy. He had actually asked me about this style like 3 or 4 months ago. He was asking if it was possible to build a BladeStyle that sort of mimics a LavaFlow. And at the time, I had sort of told him I wanted to take on that task, and so I did. And I'd sort of halfway built something, but a bunch of other things must have gotten in the way because I completely had forgotten about it. So when he asked me about it this time around, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finish this. So I have a version of this finished. It's a little rough, and I'm probably going to make a couple more changes, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. So I think he'll like it. And then let's see, what other? I got another. What was the other request I got that I liked? It was great. Oh, so somebody else had also asked for, can you do a dark and a light Revan variants? Now, interestingly enough, last week I had already done some dark and light Revan variants for Cameron Ingalls, the guy, Lord Reaver, who runs ReaversArsenal. So he had finished publishing 2 new sound fonts that were a dark and light Revan sound font that he is working with Virus Sabers on. So Virus Sabers is now packaging his 2 Revan fonts. I think in their new Profi Core config that they're selling, right? So about that time last week, I had sat down and wanted to do a blade style for each of those. So I was like, well, I just happened to have some with me. So I went and posted those as well. So what I'm going to demo for you all tonight is essentially just the big grouping of the BladeStyle challenge response requests that I got, and it's sort of just all in one shot. So what I've got is I've got two versions of the Orochi, sort of the false first version and then the second real version. Then I've got the BladeStyle version for TheRedeemed, which is the light side Revan font from ReaversArsenal. And then I've got a BladeStyle variant for TheBetrayed, which is the dark side Revan font from ReaversArsenal. Then I've got the LavaBlade, and with that I'm pairing out with the Soundfont from Kyberphonic. And then the last request I got, which was really more of a fun one, was somebody had asked me to do a BladeStyle variant for Quinlan Voss. Never really considered him before, but you know, he's sort of a fun character, so I went and put together a sort of a fun green hump flicker BladeStyle for him. So those are the 6 styles I'll be demoing with, for you tonight. So let's get started. So this is Orochi. So this is the first version of Orochi. It's sort of like my first draft. Where I went with this was this is a yellow BladeStyle that uses like a surging pulse type of effect. And it does have a style fire or a fire config on the swing. And the clashes are all using a pure white. They're using a 255, 255, 255 RGB scale. So originally, so when I first heard this sound font, now keep in mind, up until 2 days ago, I'd never heard this sound font before. When I first heard the sound font, you know, I noticed right away, you know, a lot of that Japanese samurai sword style on the font, which is really cool. And as I was putting this style together, I realized, you know, originally I had sort of had in mind this yellow color as sort of a, you know, a noble color, or you know, like a warrior color, right? But as I sort of kept listening to the font more and more and more, I realized thematically that really didn't match. What I was really looking for was something much more subtle, much more elegant, and much more just tamped down. So this was the second version I came up with. This is the one that was actually working in my head. Now, if you can believe it, this is actually the same base blade style. This is like a surging pulse style. What I did was I made the base color a silver, and then I paired it with a light violet and then a light blue. So it's going like a light violet, silver, light blue on that little color wheel. And then one of the other fun things I had with this variant was this is still using the fire config. So you'll notice that fire config is still in the purple. And so I set it to like an enhanced swing. So on a light swing, it barely shows up at all. On a hard swing, On a hard swing, it's very visible. I also sat down and played around with the clash sequencing a little bit more too with this one. So I'm finding as I learn more and more about BladeStyle building, you know, there's these subtleties in all of these layers and all of these steps. And one of those subtleties is sort of in the beginning end of transition for a lockup. So for each lockup like this, you've actually got three major steps that are occurring with that. It's the begin color when the lockup first starts. Then there's the transition into the base color for what the lockup looks like on the blade. And then there's the third step, which is the end lockup color that it transitions to very briefly before it goes back to the base blade. And so with this blade style in particular, I spent a lot of time tweaking around inside those transition colors between the main base blade color and the main lockup color. So that beginning and end colors, I was tweaking around a lot with adding some like really light blues, some light purples, playing around with the RGB. So there's a lot of work in this blade style to add to its subtlety, and that's really so you notice there's like that little aqua blue in there, that cyan, right before it comes in. That's the type of transition. And here's the force effect. So all in all, I'm always really happy and satisfied when I can have an idea in my head and work it out on the style code and actually get something out that's, you know, like 95% of what I was thinking. It's always really frustrating when I can only get a certain part of the way before either the tool is limiting what I can do or that my own knowledge of the tool is limiting what I can do. But in this case, it worked out exactly the way I wanted it to. So that's the Orochi blade style that I had a lot of fun building. That was a real blast. It was a real treat to work on.
Revan never fell.
Okay, and then moving through, this is the Revan Light, the Redeemed. And this is a purple blade with white and red accents. Now this is a random flicker blade. All your basic your mid-blade responsive clashes and lockups. And it's got a color fireswing on here. And then here's the red summon. Now what that does is when you invoke the summon effect, it brings red color from the tip of the blade and shoots it down to the emitter, and then the emitter will flicker for about 3 seconds with red and then dissipate off the blade. Like that. Now this also has a paired stab effect, like this, there, where I will also trigger the emitter red, but the stab effect shoots white instead of red. So let me show you that again. Then here's the force effect. Just sort of a nice gradient power boost that goes for like 5 seconds. Let me show you that again. That's the force effect. And then here is the Betrayed.
The Dark Lord Revan.
And so when I built the Betrayed, I essentially built these as a pair. But I just sort of flipped the color palette. So this is a red blade with essentially the same effects. See, now we do purple on the summon, and then white on the stab, but it will flicker purple on the emitter. Just like that. And here's the force effect. Okay. So that's my Revan pair. And I had a lot of fun putting those together last week. That was a really fun project. Okay, and here's the lava blade. Now hopefully I can get the right exposure on this camera. I am using a 4K camera for this, but I'm always worried that this will wash out. So what this is, the design is actually really simple. It's just a red smoke blade, and it is using, it's sort of using a variant of standard red, a dark red, and then a black as it sort of moves across the blade. Now, unfortunately, what you can't see is the black dents. I'm using Fett's rain dent effect, and so he has two effects that are rain related. You can either do a rain spark, which are white specks, or you can do a rain dent, which is black, right? So it's essentially the inverse. They essentially do the same thing. It's just different colors by default, but in the config you can make it any color you want. So I'm using a black rain dent effect on this blade, and unfortunately on the camera you can't really see it. You can only see it when it hits the edge of the blade, and it will sort of minimize the color for a very brief instant, like right there. And also to give it more of that lava flowy feel, all of the clashes and lockups I do in a bright orange and a dark yellow. So I'm sort of messing around with that sort of dark yellow, dark orange color palette on top of the red blade. And that's the lightning block, which is also a orange red. It's also got a fireswing. And now this is the fun thing, though. So I'm only 75% of the way done with the blade. What I did was I put a placeholder in here. On this force effect, I actually put in an ice blade, but what I did was I tamped the ice blade down to essentially do the same color as the base blade. And I used that, and I set the yellow indicator on the transition effect for the ice blade, so that I can see in the style code where it is, so I can always just jump to find that chunk of style code, right? So eventually I haven't quite decided what I want to do with that ice blade effect. Whether I want to do sort of like a sparkly dent effect, whether I want to do like a random prelude flicker, something to make it look like fuzzy. Not sure what I want to do with this effect yet. And then this is the thaw, the thaw sequence where it thaws back to the regular blade. So I just have that effect sort of in here in the style code, and then eventually I'll go back and play around with it some more and do something interesting with it. But for now, I just wanted to put it in the code to have it there. Now, this is also another example of those transition colors I was talking about earlier on the begin lockup and end of lockup. I did a lot of playing around with the oranges and yellows on this blade style too. So you'll notice on the blaster block, I'm using black. But you'll notice that flash right before it goes to the dark yellow lockup. I flash it bright yellow and then tamp down to dark yellow on the lockup and then go up again to a bright orange and then back to the red blade. So that's what I do for these lockup sequences. Because you get that, like, just that instantaneous blink. That's what I was after. You know, sort of just imagine what happens if you're standing over a LavaFlow and you like crumple up a piece of paper and throw it in there, right? You see that instantaneous poof right before it burns, right? It's sort of what I'm thinking about. And then it has a cycle down on the, so I think it's a cycle up too. Is it? Yeah, this is a cycle up and a cycle down on the ignition retraction. There we go. And then the last one was the Quinlan Voss. Now this one I didn't put a whole lot more time into. But I've never built a Quinlan Voss blade style before, so I just did a little bit of, and I kind of already familiar with the character. I didn't go too deep into like his background of, you know, being a light side force user, falling in love with a Sage Ventress, allowing himself to be, to learn the dark side and sort of go on that sort of path into becoming a Sith, and then, you know, relying on his love of Visage to basically pull him back from the dark side, that sort of thing. So I didn't really do any like of the journey of that type of thing of the character. I basically looked at him and said, okay, he was a Jedi. He had a green blade. He was sort of an outcast. He spent a lot of time outdoors in nature, and so I sort of just themed it around that. So what I came up with was a, whoops, I should probably change it to the style, huh? So what I came up with was basically just a multicolored green hump flicker with a
Quinlan Voss.
with a fire config. Now in this config, rather than just punt out the standard FET library config, I did toy around with this one in the style editor for a while, and essentially did a lot of color modifications. So, like for instance, the clashes I moved down from white to like honeydew, and to like other softer versions of white that have a little bit more green in them. Played around a little bit with the transition colors. Whoops. The force effect here is using a bright boost on the swing. So, still had a lot of fun with this, although this one, I didn't really challenge myself a whole lot with this one. I basically was looking to build a green Jedi blade that was interesting, more than just sort of your stock blade, but that was a variant that I had not built before. But that would still thematically fit for a Jedi. So, like, I would not put this on a Luke sound font, for example, or a Yoda, but I might put it on, like, the Crazy Hermit, for example, from Kyberphonic's Knights of the Old Republic. I might put it on the Crazy Hermit. I would definitely put it on Quinlan Voss. Probably put it on a Qui-Gon sound font. But I will paste bin these. All these style codes will be paste binned in the video description, and feel free to use them on whatever sound font you like. I had a lot of fun, interacting with folks, taking in their requests, and sort of thinking about what to do with them. It was a real fun brain exercise. Somebody else, a friend of mine from the Facebook groups, Omar Zavala, who I'm sure if any of you have bought sabers on Facebook Market, you probably have seen his name. Great guy. So he was the last one to comment on that thread, asking for some Ahsoka Tano blade styles, most notably like the lime green one from Clone Wars, and then several variants on the white blades. So those blade styles I already have, that I've used on my AT Shota, that I actually have a blade style demo for that I did a few months back on my YouTube channel. But I'll probably clip just the ones he's asking for and just do a follow-up to this anyway, just for fun. So yeah, anyway, look for that one probably sometime tomorrow. Anyway, thanks for watching. Sorry for the long rambling rant video. It's about 26, 27 minutes, but I hope you enjoyed the BladeStyle demo, and please feel free to leave a comment, and yeah, may the Force be with you. All right, take care, y'all.